Hello, my lovelies, and welcome back to another episode of Listen Closely with me, your host, Bobby. Here I talk all things true crime, paranormal, unexplained phenomenon, extraterrestrial, cryptozoology, dark history, and more. If you haven't already, make sure you're following me on all my social medias to get all the extra tidbits, including articles, photos, and anything related to the topics I discuss. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. All of them are at HTT Listen Closely. And if you have anything that you would like me to discuss, you can also email me httlistenclosely@gmail.com. And without further ado, let's get into it. This week we are talking about the Old Greenhouse Road located in northwest Houston, west of Barker Cypress, and south of West Little York. Now, this is not to be confused with Greenhouse Road. It is actually Old Greenhouse Road. And it's actually a small stretch of road that connects two parts of Keith Harrow Boulevard. Now, this little piece of road has seen several accidents over the years. However, there is one in particular that we will be discussing. It is of an older woman who did have a car accident, and unfortunately it was a fatal one. This is more of an urban legend, as there is no real 100% solid proof evidence of a woman crashing on this road in particular that was a fatal crash. So I have kind of looked into the internet and I haven't seen anything as of yet that says that yes, a woman did have a fatal car crash on this road. However, I'm not saying that it didn't happen. In fact, there are, like I said, many crashes along this road and just in roads in general. So for one to have or not have a fatal crash, it's kind of it may or may not have happened. I'm not too sure, but it's just one of those things that we're just going to have to go with the urban legend here. So legend has it that the older woman did not pass on. She did not move on to the next part of her being, and in fact is still haunting this road. And they say that the most consistent way to make her materialize is to actually be on the bridge that goes over Bear Creek along this road. So apparently she has seen the most on this bridge over Bear Creek, which kind of makes sense if you go back to what we were saying way back on the episodes of Galveston, that moving water tends to give them more energy than, say, just a stagnant area. So that moving water might be some of the reason why they see her more on this bridge, or maybe it's just because she actually crashed along this bridge. I'm not too sure. This is just purely urban legend that she did crash, but I mean, that's just some why you might see her more on this bridge than in other places. But they say that what you do is you drive on this road at night, turn off your headlights, and continue down the road at a very slow speed. And at some point within this drive, a mist will start to form. And then the mist will just kind of grow and grow. And if you're on this road long enough, it will turn into a human form. And not only a human form, but of the form of a woman. And if seeing this mist turn into a woman hasn't scared you away, and you stay there long enough, this woman will actually approach you. Now, once she approaches, there are some different stories about what happens. Some say that she'll just approach you and ask you for a ride, and others say she'll do more than just that and actually possibly cause harm. I did find this one story of 4 boys who did decide to put the urban legend to the test. They went down there, they didn't see the mist, and then all of a sudden a woman appeared on the side of their car. And they said that she had looked very young and innocent, and it wasn't at all like the descriptions of the ghost that they had heard. But the woman told them that she wanted to go home and started crying. Now again, this is absolutely nothing like the ghost stories that they were hearing, and they just thought this was just a younger woman who just wanted to go home. So being moved by her crying and just asking to go home, one of them decided to let her get into the car. So they stepped out of the way to let her in. And he started to immediately scream when she held his hand. His friends watched his skin boil and melt as if it burned with acid. So scared out of their mind, the driver fired up the vehicle to escape. Like he was just ready to haul butt out of there. And one of the boys tried to grab their friend who was being held by this lady, but she screamed, "He's mine unless you take me home." there was no trace of the boy that was ever found. Now, again, that within itself, so like this is an urban legend, and within this urban legend is this other urban legend of the boy who is being taken. Again, I have seen nothing. This was just one account that I had found on the internet. So, I mean, you can take it with a grain of salt on whether or not that happened. If it did, I'm sure there would have been many articles and things covering this, but unfortunately, it was just that one. But I thought it was interesting enough to share. So, whether or not she harms you to be taken home or she just approaches you and kind of like disappears, there's no real telling. Now, for her to approach and ask to be taken home makes sense because if you go back to the original story of an elderly woman driving, she was either going to or from home. So it makes sense that if a ghost who doesn't understand that they are indeed ghosts, they would want to be taken home. They don't understand, they don't comprehend. I have passed and I need to move on, or I need to, do what I need to do. So it would make sense for this old lady to approach cars and say, hey, take me home. I was just in an accident. Like she's still stuck in that time of I just got into an accident. So the last thing she remembers possibly is getting into that accident. So what happens when you get into an accident? Well, you get out of your vehicle and then you try to find help. And there's no real telling when exactly this happened. So maybe this was a time before cell phones to where she doesn't know about that. So when she got out, she obviously went towards the road to find someone to help her. So that may or may not be what's happening here. But they say that it's best to see her on clear nights or after a slight rain. So it's not the same of, it has to be a dark, spooky night or cloudy night, like most ghost stories like to say. It is mostly a clear nights or some slight rain. And the rain, again, that might help if we go back to the theory that ghosts manifest themselves more easily with the energy of the moving water after a slight rain or something. That makes a little sense with that. However, you would think with thunderstorms and things of that nature, again, she would manifest herself easily. But who's to say? And maybe it's just, again, maybe it was slightly raining that night, or, like it was clear, but it had just recently rained when she had crashed. I mean, there's no telling how that kind of plays into it. These are just all speculations, my theories of this urban legend. Now, again, this is obviously an urban legend, so there is no documented proof on this have or not have been happening. And once more, they have also been reports of ghostly women crying and even a baby crying. So that kind of goes along the whole lines of the Sarah Jane story here, where the woman is, looking for her crying baby. And it just seems like bridges seem to pull this out. And it's a reoccurring legend about women, wandering the streets. Again, the lady in whites asking for rides home, or babies crying because of bridges, whether they were tossed over the bridge by passing bad guys or whether they were hidden under the bridges to get away from the bad guys and then they were later swept away by water or what have you, or they just weren't found. I mean, these are all reoccurring stories. So I'm not too sure how to take this one. Again, this is all speculations, but it has attracted many paranormal investigators over the years, and it has been written up on a few times. I mean, it's on the internet. It's within a book called Weird Texas. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of this book, but it is like a traveler's guide to Texas's local legends and best kept secrets. So it has things of ghost stories and Bigfoot and things of that nature. So I kind of look into that a little bit to get some of these stories. And this just happened to be like a small little paragraph within that book that I kind of wanted to look into. And then I found more on internet, again, like the boys who said that their friend's hands started to burn almost like with acid. So that's just one of the local ghost stories. Again, this is in Houston, more kind of Katy area. I'm not too sure how to make of this one. It just seems like it's a very generic ghost story, if you see what I'm saying. Like it plays off a lot of just other ones. Like, okay, lady on a bridge or lady asking for a ride home, car crash, Like it's a very generic ghost story, and I'm not saying that it's wrong, but it just seems like if there was more to it, there would be more to it, or some kind of evidence, something there that could help us explain this. So, who's to say what parts are right, what parts are wrong? I mean, there's just no telling. And obviously, I do believe that there are things that we cannot explain. And we've talked about ghosts many times on this podcast. This is just one that it just sounds too generic to really be true. But who am I to say? I haven't been there. I can't tell you one way or the other. So maybe if you're local in that area, you can help me tell me your side of the story. Tell me if you believe it, if you don't, or, if you've experienced anything, what you experienced. Obviously, if you don't want to be quote unquote one of those people and be judged for what you have or have not seen, you can always directly message me on Facebook and Instagram. Again, those are at HTT Listen Closely. You can also email me, httlistenclosely@gmail.com, and let me know what you're thinking. I mean, do you buy into this one, or is it more of a generic ghost story? Have you seen something on this, like you've gone and personally investigated this or personally tried it out, and you did experience something, or you didn't? Let me know what you're thinking. Again, you can always comment, email, message me, do what you have to do to let me know, because I love hearing about y'all's ghost stories. I've had a few people who I do an episode on will later come back and say, hey, I know about this and this is what I experienced, or hey, I know about that and this happened to me. And it's just so interesting to hear y'all's side of the stories on whether or not y'all have experienced anything. So let me know what y'all are thinking. Do y'all think this is real? Do you think that it's just made up ghost story? I mean, let me know. But that'll do it for this episode. Ghost, what do you think? Do you believe in them, or do you think that there is some kind of a logical explanation? No matter what side you may fall on, always remember to listen closely.